What if I told you that every single L&D initiative that you've ever launched, every course, every platform, every beautifully polished module was only half the job? What if I told you that the reason engagement is low, outcomes are vague, and your stakeholders keep giving you the side eye isn't just because you're not marketing your stuff? It's because of the learning itself. The product was never designed to deliver real impact. Not for the business, not for the learner, and certainly not for the people expected to change their behavior because of it. Today, my friends, we are launching the antidote to all of that. A model that challenges the whole system, one that forces better questions, better design, and better outcomes. Welcome to the People Impact Loop, the strategic backbone L&D didn't know it needed. Hey, Han. You all right?
That was spot on. I'm so excited, Ash.
Yeah. Just so you guys know, there's no edit there. I just recorded it and we went straight into this.
I was on mute, so I didn't giggle at her radio voice.
What if everything I ever told...
If you actually spoke like that all the time, I don't think I could deal. But the excitement is real. Even listening to you say that, I knew what you were going to say. And I'm still sitting here like, something's changing.
I hope so.
I think this is what L&D have been after for a long, long time, don't you?
For sure. You know, I think that obviously we'll get into the nitty gritty of what this People Impact Loop thing is and why it came to be, and indeed why we're launching it and why we've been building up to this for the last few episodes of the season. We're so excited to bring this to you guys because, you know, I think as people who aren't L&D folks, you and I have a very unique lens on the way that we're doing things in L&D and always have a lot of like confused expressions like, but why aren't we doing it like this? And why is it this way? So the People Impact Loop is really designed to be a different way of thinking. And it's not another, you know, L&D strategy. This is a process and a way of changing everything that we do, essentially. So, you know, it's like just like a small piece of work, like
just a tiny bit of work. Nothing big to bring you back from mat leave at all, is it, Ash?
No, exactly. That's right.
But I think it's important to note that we say we're not L&D folk a lot. Yeah, but we are really. Both of us have been in the industry for over a decade now. We know what we're talking about. We just aren't trained as instructional designers or learning experience designers. And actually, I think today and in this podcast, people will get the gist that a lot of our problems come back to that. Like you've already said, we need to make sure the product design is right and we're designing to make an impact. So maybe this fresh perspective is absolutely what is needed. And of course, the People Impact Loop is absolutely your brainchild. I would be reluctant to say go and have another baby and come up with more great ideas like that. But it worked.
I'm good. I'm good.
Obviously, since you've been back from mat leave, you came back in January, you've been working on this in the background. And we are now both bought so into the People Impact Loop. But we've spoken around it. What is the People Impact Loop?
Yeah, so I think the thing for me that I kept on coming back to is the fact that we've said this before, L&D is full of good intentions. L&D folk really are trying to do the best that they can, but those good intentions just aren't moving things. You know, they're not moving the dial. We've said before in the podcast, we're seeing so much disruption and change in the learning functions at the moment. There's a lot of lack of perceived value in the business, which means L&D is becoming part of talent, part of HR, part of wider people functions. L&D isn't proving valuable to the business for whatever reason. And also, if you tandem that with the fact that most of the projects that we do, we're being brought in kind of at the end of that L&D life cycle where a lot of stuff is already being done. And that's being trying to be executed into the organization. So there's been a learning strategy created, learning content exists, learning programs exist, and they can't get the engagement that they're looking for. So they think, hey, let's go talk to those little crazy pineapple ladies. They'll fix the magic, and they'll that's the key to it all, marketing. And you know what? To an extent, it absolutely is. But what we've been finding is we are building incredible marketing campaigns for substandard products. And we inherit a product that isn't fit for purpose for the business or for the employees. And that comes back repeatedly in our research on both fronts. And therefore, no matter how good the campaign is, there's no ability for anything to have any longevity because the product isn't right. So the product isn't fit for purpose. The marketing that L&D usually do isn't fit for purpose. It's not a surprise that we are not driving impact, not only with the people that we're trying to help, but also wider with the business. So budgets are shrinking, perceived value is lost, trust is gone, so on and so forth. So that's kind of where it came from. You know, we've been taught to think in content that volume equals value. We're very reactive in the way that we work. We're very much disconnected from business strategy. God, I'll just think about that session you did where you asked people if they knew their business strategy and like 2 people put their hands up. You know, we're a little bit lost and we're caught in a perpetual hamster wheel of trying to create things that aren't fit for purpose, essentially.
Yeah. And I think L&D know this. With all these projects that we've worked on where this has come out in the data, they're not surprised. They're not saying, oh, this is brand new information. But we are always building on legacy products. We're not going, actually, let's draw a line. Let's go and do the research. Let's go and do that understanding piece. Let's make sure the product market fits there. We just keep trying to add bolt-ons to pre-existing problems. It's not going to work. And I think adopting the people impact loop into an organisation and following it properly, not cutting corners, not jumping straight to the campaign bit, not saying, yeah, I've done the research and you haven't actually. That's what the difference is going to be. That's when we're going to start getting people functions that actually make an impact to the business, that are actually putting their employees' needs first, but also the business needs first, and actually getting that reputation that we've been striving for, that seat at the table that we talk about so much. We need to start demonstrating our value and actually making an impact. In that same session that you just mentioned where 2 people put their hand up about the business strategy, I said it and I saw a lot of shocked faces on L&Ders in the room. We can't prove value until we create it. And that's where we're currently sitting. We need to be creating the value in the first place.
That's it. You know, we're doing our best, but we're stuck building learning that's divorced from business strategy, divorced from any real strategy, and it's completely misaligned with what people need. So, you know, we're not just flirting with failure, we're taking it out to dinner. We're wooing it at this stage, right? Like we're on the breadline here. So, you know, I think it's crucial that rather than, again, like, you know, I think that analogy of adding a bolt on and just, you know, we're not fixing the root cause of the problem. So I spent a long time thinking about, well, what is the root cause of our issues in L&D? Why are things so dysfunctional? And, you know, we talk about being order takers and stuff, and whose fault is that and what's going on? And I really think this approach, this tool, you know, this operating system, if you want to call it that, it's not an L&D model. It's a way of working and it's a way of doing. This is transformative because it completely shifts how L&D works and it changes how we embed ourselves in the business and build value.
Absolutely. So what is that process? What is that process we need to follow, Ashley? Tell people what they need to do.
Well, let me tell you all about it. So first of all, it isn't a process in its truest sense. I guess we could call it a process, but I like the term like strategic operating system. And the idea here is that we're not just thinking about marketing at the end of our learning life cycles when it comes to campaigns, but we're having a marketer's mindset throughout the entire ecosystem of learning and that entire life cycle. So we're looking at embedding marketing into learning design and strategy, thinking like a marketer when it comes to campaigns, but also product thinking, better alignment with the business. So there's 5 core stages that help you better align to the business and drive more impact ultimately in the people impact loop. So the first thing really is a twofold thing. So gathering business insights and audience insights is absolutely crucial. So we need to start with understanding what your people actually need and what the business really wants and expects from L&D. And I hate to break it to you, but those probably aren't the same thing. And wrangling with those two different expectations is really crucial and important. How do we meet the business needs whilst also placating and solving learner problems? And guess what? If you've listened to our podcast in the last 10 weeks, we talk all about data because data is the backbone of everything. So we need to be doing market research. We need to be gathering those insights to ensure that we're not just doing guesswork. This people impact loop is like the GPS in a world of guesswork. We don't build based on data a lot of the times at the moment. We just make assumptions, or we're told what to do by SMEs or other stakeholders. But if we do this insights piece, we'll unveil a lot about not only audience sentiment, but, even when we do our discovery, we unveil so much about what people are struggling with learning, what they want from learning. It can help inform your learning strategy incredibly. Mm-hmm. That can then really help you to align to the business as well and meet those business needs. If your organization is going to go through a very serious phase of M&A, then you need to get your staff upskilled on change management, navigating change, working in ambiguity, la-di-da-di-da. That might really inform how you build a learning strategy compared to an organization that is driving growth and is going to go through a heavy recruitment phase following funding. This is why the business strategy is crucial to understand, because it impacts L&D, or it certainly should. Mm-hmm. So aligning with that business first and foremost means that everything we build is aligned to what the business is expecting from L&D. So that's how we prove impact, and that's how we prove value. These soft skills repository, how do we measure that? How do we prove to our C-suite that was of any value and worth the investment?
Absolutely. And I think there's been this long-standing rhetoric in L&D that we're shocked and surprised by things when they suddenly happen, and it's always sprung on us and it's always last minute. Actually, if you're kind of aligned to the business strategy, it overcomes a lot of those problems that we see currently persisting because we're so obsessed with doing our own agenda in our own silo that we're not aligned to the business. So then when things do change, it is a shock to us. And we're not going to be privy to everything that's going on, but we should be able to anticipate at least the next year. So being aligned to the business strategy isn't just going to make your product better. It will, but it's not just going to do that. It's going to make your life a lot easier as well. And I think that's pretty much the backbone of the people impact loop as well. We've thought about the business, we've thought about the employees and the end users and our audience, but we've also thought about L&D as well, haven't we?
Yeah, because I think the truth is, this doesn't just change how you do marketing for L&D. It changes the way you think about learning in your organization. Again, we've said people functions. This can apply to any people function where they're, really forced to build initiatives that are supporting employees across the organization. So the people impact loop always starts with insights. Insights and business alignment is the most crucial step because that is the framework, that is the scaffolding for everything else we do. And if we don't get that bit right and we just work on assumptions, everything else is kind of destined to fail from there because there's no ability to validate, there's no ability to correlate and prove value because we don't really know what value means to the business. The next step is moving on to developing your learning products, essentially, improving the employee experience. So again, once you have that research, you can start to understand, right, where do we need to refine? What can we get rid of? We're wasting money here, here, and here. It's not being used. People say they want X, Y, and Z. I'm not here to tell you what your research is going to say, but it should inform how you refine the initiatives that you're creating, what you can get rid of, which is probably a lot, and really improve that employee experience and ensure that the product is very aligned to the market expectations. So we're looking for that product market fit, that the product is created for an audience. Like I said in the very, very wonderful intro I did there, we're really looking at how we are designing for the people that we're expecting to change their behavior for, right?
Yeah.
And how we've got to a point where we're not doing that is bewildering. And I think, again, lots of learning experience designers, the intentions are good and they build with good intentions. But if we don't have the basis of insights and research behind us, how do we really know that what we're doing is the right decision?
Yeah. And I think as well, the people impact loop forces you to zoom out. We've spoken a lot on the podcast in many different episodes about looking holistically at L&D across the board, and the same thing goes for all the other people functions, looking big picture. LXDs absolutely operate with the best intentions, and they do think of it typically on a program by program basis. But then what this ends up with is this higgledy-piggledy mismatch of, well, this lives here and that lives there, and this has got really great UX and that's got, that one's will do okay. And what we want to do after that research phase, and we're looking then at the product design part of it, is actually work out what is our status quo. How are we going to make this whole learning offering, whole learning product, or people product, or talent product, whatever it is, actually fit for purpose? Not just keep putting plasters over the cracks, because that's what we've been doing for a long time. And it's led us in many, many organisations, and we've worked with them firsthand, Ash, to be in a really sticky situation that isn't good for anybody, not you as L&D, not the audience, and not the business either.
Well, the business doesn't see L&D as valuable, so people are losing their jobs. Like, it's that simple, you know. The reality is we're not being perceived as valuable because we're creating content and learning experiences in silo with no insights, no real alignment with the business. It's just not a surprise that they don't work. We've said a lot about products, learning products. We don't think about our experiences as a product, but that's what it is. It's consumed by people. So if we start thinking about building learning like any company would build a product, i.e. making sure it's desirable for the audience, making sure it's relevant, making sure that it's building value for that audience as well. We want
profitable.
People to... Yes, absolutely, right? But it's only going to be profitable if it's desirable, relevant, valuable, contextual.
Exactly.
People are only going to want it if it gives them those things. So that's where your ROI is. So unless we start really thinking about our learning offerings as a product and take the time to truly understand what's required of us in order to make it desirable, relevant, and valuable, we're going to continue to create stuff that fails and costs us in the long run because the business doesn't have confidence in what we do anymore. Mm-hmm. And then and only then should you look at marketing in its true sense. Woo-hoo! That's the bit. That's where we usually get pulled in, right, though? Absolutely. So people have already built their learning products and their strategies and all of that stuff, and then they're like, yeah, okay, campaigns now. And yes, campaigns are crucial, but only if that product works, Otherwise, I did that webinar and I used the example of Fire Festival. Their marketing was sensational. They got interest. They got tons of people to sign up to Fire Festival, and then people went and it was appalling. And look, hey, they never went again. It's not enough to have good marketing with a substandard product. It's also not good enough to have a substandard marketing approach with a great product. So we need both. We need a good product and we need good marketing and engagement and activation strategies to ensure that people know what you've got to offer them and they know why it's a benefit to them, and we answer that, what's in it for me, and we consistently stay present and front of mind so that they are reminded repeatedly of that value and how it makes their lives better.
Yeah, and so much of what we do in all people functions is about people. We're there to serve the business and its employees. And so much of it is about trust, whether you're in talent, L&D, HR, whatever it is, it's about trust. And if you've got a poor learning product but great marketing, you're going to break the trust. If you've got poor marketing and a great product, you're going to break the trust. Yep. If you get the two aligned, that's when trust is going to get built, people want to come back to you, and you start getting that long-term engagement that we've been striving for, like it's some... the North Star that we can't quite reach, with actually matching the two up, that's when we're going to get there. All of the people impact loop is about marketing mindset. But it's only here on the fourth step, isn't it, that we're actually thinking about campaigns and marketing tactics. Sure. And I think all too often people functions think that just slapping a campaign over a really crappy product is going to be the solution to their problems, and it's not.
No. Like you said, it'll just actually annihilate trust in the end because it's a case of an overpromise and underdeliver situation. The truth of the matter is, your people are entering into a transactional contract with you when they give you their time. You know, if I go to a shop and I buy a chocolate bar, and that chocolate bar, for whatever reason, isn't good. It's out of date. There's worms crawling in it, whatever, right? I don't enjoy the product that I've paid money for. I may, if I fancy that chocolate bar again, I may buy it again. I may try it again. But I'm certainly going to think twice before I buy it again. Because I'm going to think, well, the last time I bought that, it wasn't very good and I wasted my money because I didn't enjoy it and I put most of it in the bin. Maybe I won't buy that. I'll go for a double-decker instead or something. So that's the way that your audience thinks about your learning. Well, I went there a couple of times, or, you know, oh, they sent me this and I did it and it wasn't very good. You know, I remember distinctly speaking to people for discovery for our mutual client, and someone said to me, you know, I think I maybe said it in the last podcast actually. Like, I went through like an hour of, like, I selected something I needed to learn, but there was so many different courses, so I just picked one in the end. And then when I did it, I got about halfway through and realized it was like far too junior for me, and I knew everything I needed to know already, and so I just completely wasted my time. Mm-hmm. Guess what? There's no banked value in that transaction. You've lost their confidence.
I literally spoke to somebody on Monday this week at a client organisation, an employee that works in different countries. So she went along to a training that was in a kind of inconvenient time zone, but she was committed and wanted to go to the training. And she said it was utterly pointless. It didn't add anything to her life. And now she proactively doesn't go to training that isn't within her working hours. So she was highly engaged, really wanted to get involved, was ready to make the commitment, and the poor learning experience, because it wasn't matched up to her wants and needs, the marketing oversold it maybe. I don't know what the root cause of that problem was, but it broke her trust, and now she doesn't want to go back at all.
Yeah, exactly that. So we have to be very, very, very careful of jumping the gun with true marketing and campaigns if our product isn't quite right, you know, and getting those audience insights and doing that market research is the first step in doing that, so that you can refine your product, you can improve your employee experiences. Then once you've done that, you can have confidence that when you do a strong and effective marketing campaign, that it's going to land, right? People are going to actually engage with it because they'll have an experience and it will be a predominantly positive one. You know, that's when we're looking at activation and engagement. We're not going to launch our product and leave it. Sometimes we won't even launch it at all. All right. We want to activate it with storytelling campaigns, but we also want to continue to build engagement through cadences, through that hum, sing, shout, through consistently staying front of mind. Like, we can't, again, just launch it and then think it will just continue to be used. Marketing is always on. In fact, a term in marketing, like for channels that are always on, that is a thing. Your website is an always on channel. It exists whether you're doing something with it or not. And marketing is something that does need to be passively and what's the opposite of passively?
Actively.
Outwardly? Actively. Thank you. Wow. Very worky today. I'm really clever, guys. Please trust me on the people impacted. So, you know, we need to be doing both, right? And we need to kind of be in that background, but also being much more proactive and engaging with people. So we've got 4 steps so far, right? Gather insights and align with the business. That's 2, right? So aligning with the business, understanding business goals, gathering insights on the audience and the employer base, the stakeholders. What's everybody thinking? What's going on? What's the culture of the organization? What the heck am I trying to market these products into? What products do people want and need? Cool. I'm going to go and refine my offering. I'm going to improve it. Maybe I'm going to get rid of some stuff. Maybe I'm going to introduce something new that people have said they want or need. And then I'm going to do some marketing around it consistently over a long period of time. And then and only then, this is where the loop magic comes in, is because we've aligned with those business values from the start and the business goals, we can measure, we can prove value, we can evidence outcomes, we can use data that we gather to actually improve the next loop of work, right? So we're gathering data and insights, which then can inform our strategy and our alignment, improve our product, improve our marketing, so on and so forth. So this is, rather than us being stuck on that hamster wheel that I mentioned earlier, we're turning L&D into a flywheel. We're taking the energy that we're generating and we're pushing that back into our own functions. That's what a flywheel does. So we're really trying to change completely the way we're doing things.
Absolutely. And I think that in and of itself is a big change for many L&D teams. I won't say all of them, but many of them, because all too often our end goal is getting people to take said learning. Mm-hmm. The people impact loop forces you to go beyond that and actually make that loop, like you said, that cyclical process of going back, proving the value, starting again, making sure we're continuously checking in with our audiences, aligning to the business strategy. Your business strategy this year is likely to be different to the one for next year and the year after. So consistently checking what we're doing, and apparently doing this with your hand a lot. For anyone watching, I'm doing an infinity loop.
That is what it looks like. An infinity loop, Virgin Media's finest. So I think the crux of all of this for me is we do not know what to do to shift things. So like you said, like, this is why we get so fixated with the hottest and latest thing that a vendor comes out with, whether it's a LXP or a skills program or a skills platform, or the latest obviously being AI, because they feel like promised solutions to the problems. But as you've already said, you know, these are bandages over large cracks, or to quote Taylor Swift even, Band-Aids don't fix bullet holes. So, you know, I think for me, the reason I really landed on this people impact loop is, you know, as a marketer, I'm sat looking here thinking, well, the marketing is not very good because people don't understand their audiences. And the product's not very good because it's not aligned to the business and they don't understand their audiences, because most of what L&D does and people functions in general is mandated through the business rather than anything else. So they're, you know, that order taker scenario. We're being told to do X, Y, and Z. But actually, if we know what the business wants and needs, again, we can execute that wonderful 2-letter word, no. You want this? Well, soz. It's not aligned with the business goals this year and not aligned with my learning strategy. Off you pop.
Yep. And I think it's very interesting that I'm going to say this, given that I've got such a marketing mindset, but L&D doesn't necessarily need to own every single facet of learning that happens in a business. There will always be training going on within teams. There will always be informal mentoring and things like that. And that's all right. If learning is still doing their job and still delivering their job and what they need to do, we're just meant to be encouraging people to learn and engage and develop. Like, having your own strategy is absolutely fine.
So here's the way that I see it. And in fact, I was recording a podcast yesterday and I said with somebody else on someone else's podcast. But I said something along the lines of, you know, we don't need to measure everything. We can't measure everything. You know, if you adhere to 70-20-10, only 10% of anything that's being done is formal anywho. So that's a very small space to measure in the first place. When I'm talking about measurement, right, these are the key initiatives that you are spunking money on that the business wants impact from. Right? So if you go and you understand what the business is wanting from L&D and expecting from L&D and what their strategy is, there's probably going to emerge a couple of very core initiatives that are crucial to the success of achieving that business strategy through the learning lens. That doesn't mean that you need to measure the impact of every single piece of e-learning that sits on your LXP. Again, insights are probably going to tell you to get rid of some of that anyways. So for me, it's, it's less is more in so many senses of the word. We don't need so much volume. We need more value, right? We need to understand pragmatically what we should be doing in order to prove value to the business. Key initiatives are what we should be measuring. Where we're spending the most money is where we should be measuring. That's something Derek Mitchell said, and I agree with him entirely. Where the big budgets are going is where you're going to get scrutiny, and therefore that's where you need to be looking at measuring. But if you do the people impact loop, you'll know that the stuff that you're doing in the first place, before you even start measuring it, is aligned to helping achieve that business impact, right?
Absolutely.
So, where would we be without a Marketing for Learning podcast without talking about the What's in it for me?
What's in it for me bingo strikes again.
So it would be, that was a weird laugh. I went a bit muttly there, didn't I? So let's think about, right, when you were talking earlier, and like I've simplified what I understand is a very, very complicated thing, right? It's unpicking the fabric of the learning function. And therefore, it's crucial that we understand that this is a process. Even though I said it's not a process, like it's going to take us some time to really achieve this and unpick things. That's a gargantuan task. But why on earth would you want to do something like this? First and foremost, for me, what we are doing and trying isn't working. That's the crux of it. And however that's coming out of the woodwork in your organization may be different for other people, but we're seeing learning functions shrinking and frankly having a bit of an identity crisis. They don't know who they are to the business. The business doesn't really know what they do. Why do they exist? Cue existential crisis. So if we want, for the sake of our survival, we do need to go back to the drawing board truly and understand what it is that we should be doing. So this can do a few things, I think. So if your strategy has been learning platform and content, this and dealing with SME and stakeholder requests, this can help you stop firefighting. This can add more focus to what you're doing. It gives you more clarity, compass. It's a compass to everything that you're trying to do from a learning perspective. It gives you a clear view of what you should be doing and where you should be going. So you can finally get away from that content churn, building stuff that nobody really needs, but someone has asked for. Mm-hmm. On top of that, you can really start to prove the ROI of learning, right? You get the language and the logic to show value. You can speak the business's language. They don't care about completions. They don't care about bums on seats. They don't care about anything that doesn't impact business bottom lines.
I hear L&D hearts breaking across the globe. What do you mean my smile sheet should go in the bin?
No, the business doesn't want to see them. There's no connectivity to anything there. So if we want to have that seat at the table and we want to lead conversations, then we've got to speak the business's language. We need to lead conversations, not just respond to people coming to us. We need to be proactive, not reactive, right? And this really helps you with that. Again, this can help influence stakeholders' perceptions of L&D too, right? You can finally help them understand and see that learning is a lever to business success, not just the cost center they think it is, right? Mm-hmm. You're not here to just do what they say. You're here as a strategic pillar of the organization, and here's why. And then finally, the crux of it all, in order for any of that success to be true, your employees are going to have a better time. Let's be honest. They're going to get experiences that they actually want and need, designed with them in mind, delivered in a way that respects their time and their lived reality and the organizational culture, so on and so forth. Those employee experiences are refined, optimized, and improved using insights, using research to ensure that they're getting value from what it is that you're delivering.
Yeah.
What did you think about my What's in it for me?
I love your What's in it for me. We're so good at doing the What's in it for me for ourselves as well, aren't we?
Is that an innuendo? I love your What's in it for me.
Well, don't call me out like that on the podcast, Ashley. But what I think as well, when you've been talking through this today, I keep going back to that. It's almost like a business stay-in, I think, and I'm sorry for using the typical business jargon, but people talk about the storming forming and norming. And if you're adopting the people impact loop, you're going to go through that storming stage as well, because that's when you are ripping up, this is how we've always done it. You're going, no, I don't care that we've always had this gargantuan LMS that's got far too much content on it. Our employees don't need it and it's not helping the business goals. Let's cull it.
Yeah.
It is going to take the trailblazers of you out there to really embrace the people impact loop to its core. But we know it's going to make an impact. And that is what L&D is here to do, is to make an impact. We need to start actually doing that.
For sure. Yeah, because we're in that life cycle of building stuff fast, constantly delivering content and trying to meet the needs of all the requests of the people that are coming to us and telling us that they need the learning and we need the learning and you got to create the learning, and you're getting nowhere. Your inbox is on fire. Everything's just a dumpster fire of life. It's, it's a nightmare, and again, well-intentioned, but incredibly difficult. On top of that, your boss is getting pissed off with you. They're like, well, what is the point of all this? Where's the value? Nobody's learning anything. You can't show me any impact. You can't show what the ROI is on this. People are getting a bit discontent. That is the landscape that we're sitting in now. But if we take a breath and we take a pause, and instead of going, this ain't working, I need more technology. No! Take a breath. Take a pause. Go have a cocktail. Come back and think a lot about what it is that you're trying to achieve. And the first question you should be asking is of the business. What am I here for? What is my purpose as far as you can see? Why are we here? What should we be doing? What is the business wanting from L&D? And then go talk to your people, right? We have to go and ask the right questions. Rethink everything. Rethink the entire game of L&D, because honestly, this is how it works outside of the organization, right?
There's a world outside learning.
Whoa, I haven't come up with something revelatory here, truthfully, because this is literally how people design products and get people to use them, right? This is truest sense, market research, focus groups, building a product that's fit for purpose, marketing it well, and getting people to buy it repeatedly. It is not that complicated, but the way that we do things is not conducive with that process. So we need to become much more strategic. We need to make our learning more influential and impactful. We need to make sure our campaigns have resonance, have relevancy, answer the what's in it for me. And hey, guess what? When people start using stuff, we can go back and say, look how impactful this is. Mm. I know I'm making light and it sounds a bit trite, but it is that simple at its core. I understand the politics and the complexity involved in doing this. But again, if we start with those business insights and that business piece and the research, you can go and talk to your stakeholders and say, look, I've taken the time to do this, even if it means that you assign one person in your organization to do this and then apologize later. Sorry, it has caused delays. We haven't been able to deliver at the speed that we normally do because I've taken someone off to go and do this. And this is what they've done. And this is what we found. And this is what we do need to be doing. You're not going to get permission to change things because at the moment you have no ability to prove why you need to change things. So you have to go and get that data first to have those conversations and really get buy-in from the business.
Absolutely. And we're not sitting here saying, hey, it's going to be easy, go do it tomorrow and you'll be making impact by next week. It is a long-term process. It is something that's iterative and we need to go back to time and time again. But it is going to help you make that impact.
Yeah, and I mean, people like us, if you haven't got the capacity and you haven't got the time, Han and I are incredible at discovery and research. Pull us in.
Say so ourselves.
Delegate to us. The idea is that people like me and Han could help you with every single step of this process. And I'm sure there's other organizations out there that also could. There are other training providers out there. What do they have to say on BBC Radio 1 when they say a product? There's like other products are available.
Are available, yeah.
But, this is our reality. Like I have said for at least a year or more, I am very concerned concerned about the future of L&D. And that's why I've come up with this, because as you well know, I'm passionate about educating L&D and empowering people functions to really show their value and prove their worth. You know, this isn't the last you're going to see of the People Impact Loop. It's going to be everywhere. It's going to be in our podcast. It might even be in our upcoming book. That's right.
Mic drop. That was a secret. We've said it publicly now. We've got to do it, Ash.
Yeah. It is in the works. We're doing it. So what I'm going to do is I'm in the process of developing a how-to guide on the People Impact Loop. And it's going to be ready by the time we drop this podcast next week. So in the show notes, if you want to learn more about the People Impact Loop and you want to start exploring the practicalities of perhaps introducing this into your organization and your learning function or people function, then download it, because it's going to give you a bit of a broad overview of what it is, how it works, what to do, when to do it, la-di-da-di-da. Basically like our guides. Really, really useful. So that will be in the show notes as well, and some further information about the People Impact Loop in general. So, look at that. We're like on time and stuff.
We've never done this. It's the start of a new mass.
It's a new era. The pill era. Take a chill pill. Yeah.
Take a chill pill. And yes, we are completely okay with people calling it the pill, by the way. It's what we've been doing internally for the last 3 and a bit months.
L&D's taking a pill. Yeah.
Taking a pill.
It is in the process of being trademarked. Happy go lucky.
How exciting.
And yeah, I think this is just the beginning. You know, there's going to be a lot of education and support as to why this needs to be the way that it is. But I hope all of you listening that this just makes absolute sense. You know, anyone that I've sounded it with, and I did a lot of conversations with a lot of people before I landed on the final kind of structure. I know, I did market research.
Oh my. I'm a bit dumbfounded by that, Ash. That's not how we do things in L&D.
Unbelievable. You know, I got it validated and, you know, everybody got it. And so, you know, I hope that this makes sense. And ultimately, guys, this is a movement towards something different in L&D, away from content churn, endless e-learning modules, throwing more tech at a problem that isn't going to be solved by more tech. We have to go back to the drawing board, because the way that we are doing things is fundamentally broken, and we are not feeding the business, and we are not feeding the people who are supposed to benefit from us. Mm-hmm. Everybody's going a bit hungry.
Yeah. And the pill will change that.
That's right. True story. It's going to be a thing.
It is a thing. I'm just going to jump straight in. We don't need to go for the marketing for learning. It's going to be a thing. This is a thing. We're making it a thing.
Hell yeah. Right. Well, as I said, I do have a hard stop on the hour, so I'm going to have to pop off. But I think that's why we're so prompt today. Look at us go. Yes.
Maybe we should have
at its finest.
Hard stops more often.
Fake ones.
Yes. It works.
Just have a really important hard stop. So, yeah, hey, obviously, if you have any questions about the People Impact Loop, the pill, you know where to find me and Han. I'll put our LinkedIn's on the show notes as well. But, you know, or you know where our website is, I assume. You can't. It's not www.pineapple.com, by the way.
But it has been updated in line with the People Impact Loop.
It has. That was a fun task.
It's got all the typical mass flair to make you giggle, and there are a few shout-outs to individual people. So if you think you might be one of those individual people, you enjoy trying to find your name on our website.
Do you think she'll go look?
Oh, 100%. And I think she should know exactly who she is just by this. For the love of pineapples.
Oh, that's a good hint, that. If she doesn't listen to this, I'll be very upset.
I'm like,
right. Well,
we're waffling now.
I know. We have to always have some waffle. This was like quite a serious one.
It was.
So,
I don't know. It started with your radio voice, so.
True story. This is the end of the series, but I have a couple of interviews lined up. So I've got one that I need to edit. So we're going to go into a phase of having a few new faces and people coming and speaking on the podcast. And then we haven't decided what the next series will be. We've thought about going into like core tactics or, we haven't really fully pinned it down yet, have we? So again, ideas, feel free to message us. And if there's things that we haven't taught you about that you desperately want to learn about, then let us know.
Yeah, and we'll be back in your ear holes very soon.
That's right. Absolutely. Thanks for your time. And I hope you enjoyed the people impact loop.
See you later, guys.
It's a thing. Bye.